In case you missed the Young Republicans of Hialeah and Ron Paul meeting, here are a few of the highlights.
Once again, the elected officials, we all obviously have our Vice President, Town Council of Miami Lakes, Nelson Hernandez. Councilman Tim Dauber from the Town of Miami Lakes. And then we have two councilmen from the city of Hialeah. We have Pablo Hernandez. And we have the council president, Ms. Isis Garcia Martinez.
The mess that we're in right now. It took from the founding of our republic, from the inauguration of George Washington, to the inauguration of Ronald Reagan, to accrue $1 trillion in national debt in the United States of America. From George Washington to Ronald Reagan. A lot of that was Reagan. We have done $1 trillion in national debt just since I got to Washington. I was elected last November. When I got elected, my campaign was, we need to deal with this $14 trillion national debt. My campaign from now on is going to be, we need to deal with this $15 trillion national debt. So, last year, you all remember last year's election, I believe the voters sent us a message. I believe I was sent to Washington for one reason, and one reason only. Primarily, for one reason, sent to Washington. To rein in spending. Woo! To do something about bringing fiscal responsibility, fiscal sanity back to Washington. I really believe it.
And he also happens to represent...
Hey, Dave. My mom says hi, by the way. I'm totally with you on the balancing the budget amendment. I support it in the House and the Senate. All Jim DeMint, Mike Lee, Rand Paul, these guys spearheading that in the Senate. But you know,
Rubio.
Yeah, also yeah. But my question is this: it's political suicide to cut Social Security and Medicare. Even Obama's hearing it from cutting $500 billion from Medicare, right? So it's not a good thing to do as a politician. So even if we cut all the discretionary spending, all of it, the budget isn't necessarily balanced. So what do you think about moving the defense budget to George W. Bush's 2006 defense budget? Do you think that's cutting defense just a little bit to help balance the budget?
No, what we need to do, first of all, you guys need to understand, nobody's in the Republican caucus is talking about cutting Medicare, cutting Social Security. In fact, next year, Social Security, for the first time in years, is going to go up.
Yeah.
We're going to have a COLA increase, which we haven't had in years. What we want to do is reform those systems to protect them generations down the road.
Absolutely.
And certainly never impact anybody that's going to be entering or has entered or is going to be entering in close proximity those programs. We don't necessarily need to go back to years past. What we need to do is get on a different plane forward going the next 10, 20 years in our spending. We passed earlier this year, many of you heard about it, the cut, cap, and balance approach to future fiscal spending. Cut back to on the discretionary spending, cap future spending going forward, and have a balanced budget amendment to the Constitution. That's the only way this is going to work. We can't think about this in 1 year or 2 years. There's just no way to think. We have to think about this in terms of decades. And when you think about this super committee, the super committee was charged with doing $1.2 trillion in cuts over 10 years. Imagine that, over 10 years, okay, $200 billion a year. We're going to be spending $44 trillion during those same years. If we can't even get together on this threshold of $1.2 trillion, why would we ever think any Congress that we cannot even bind into the future can do it? Which is why many of us say, look, we'll do it. We'll swallow the tough medicine. We'll face the repercussions from the electorate for entitlement reform, for cutting back, for capping future spending. We're ready to do that. In the Republican caucus, in the House of Representatives, we need a dance partner to do it. So no matter what ideas we have, whether it be go back to 2006 on defense spending, you're never going to have closure on those issues until we have a partner in the United States Senate.
But if there's a balanced budget amendment, you would eventually have to cut back on everything.
Wait, What year? What are we talking?
And let's say 2006, because the super committee cuts are on the projected increases. So it's not even a real cut, even if they do cut 1.2. So how do we, by not raising taxes, which I'm for, not raising taxes, how do we balance the budget with that amendment? How do we get that forced balance of budget amendment without cutting a little bit from the overbloated Obama defense budget?
No. You have to do entitlement reform long term. Again, you can't think about this under the Obama administration or what's going on in just the last few years and going forward. We've got to deal with that going forward, certainly.